pruning content off of a website, right? Anybody who's had a website for some time has maybe added lots of pages, or if they've had a site for a while, years, maybe they've tried some tactics that are a little outdated for mass building on pages on the site. Nonetheless, pruning of content is something I think that's going to be an interesting episode for everybody. We talk a lot about building content on your website, right? Identify your keywords, make pages for those keywords, create content, etc. Welcome back to Local SEO Tactics, where we bring you tips and tricks to get found online. I'm your host, Jesse Dolan, joined in this episode again with TJ Elder. TJ, SEO manager here at Intrix. Been on the show before talking about some SEO. And TJ, happy to have you back on today. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me again.
We are going to talk about something you and I have chatted for a while here, getting this episode ready, but pruning content off of a website, right? Anybody who's had a website for some time has maybe added lots of pages, or if they've had a site for a while, years, maybe they've tried some tactics that are a little outdated for mass building on pages on the site. Nonetheless, pruning of content is something I think that's going to be an interesting episode for everybody. We talk a lot about building content on your website, right? Identify your keywords, make pages for those keywords, create content, etc. This is kind of the opposite of the spectrum, is how to go out there, take a look at content that's maybe irrelevant, old, outdated on your website, and how to prune that to help your SEO. So hopefully that kind of tees it up for everybody for what we're going to be talking about. TJ, why don't you maybe give us a little bit, maybe more elaborate description on what we're talking about here for pruning content? You know, what does that mean? Why would you need to do it? Let's start there.
Yeah, for sure. So pruning content, it comes from, pruning a shrub or something, a plant. Like if you're gardening, anybody who gardens who knows that from time to time you need to kind of prune things back in order to let it grow again effectively. So that's kind of the metaphor for your website content and why you'd want to prune content or trim content, however you want to call it. So, Google is saying more and more that they're looking for helpful content for users on the website. And that's really what they want people who are making websites to be having in mind. What is helpful for your audience? And it's really as simple as that, is finding the content that's not helpful for your audience. And then once you find that content, you have a few different options of what to do next with it.
Nice. So for us, I think we're going to start talking about Search Console. But do you want to start with telling everybody, like, first, how do you look and see what may need to be pruned or how to identify those pages?
Yeah, for sure. So I think the first thing that I would suggest is to just go and look at your website and pretend that you're the user. And you've arrived on your website and you're just clicking around and trying to understand what the purpose of the website is and how that the website can help you and what you're trying to find. Putting yourself in the user's shoes is a great exercise, and you might be surprised to find that things are not kind of matching up with what your expectations would be. Maybe there's a link to a page that doesn't really make sense, and it's one of the main links on the page. If you've got a blog and you've got a lot of blog posts, look through your blog topics and try to find topics that don't really fit with what the rest of the website's about. So that would be my first recommendation before looking into Search Console or any other technical tools for these answers. Just put yourself in the user's shoes and look at your website that way first.
So that's a tangible way, a visual way, right? Just check out your own website, kind of see what doesn't fit or maybe what's out of date. Great advice. I know, like, for our show, Local SEO Tactics, north of 200 episodes, which is then 200 blog posts, there's for sure going to be some of our earlier episodes, right? That are either outdated, maybe not relevant anymore. So for me, that the dots are kind of connected, and just being able to navigate your site. What about some more advanced? We just mentioned like Search Console. What are some more advanced ways to peek under the hood outside of just, clicking through your blog posts or your sitemap, things like that?
Yeah, for sure. So Search Console, what I would recommend people look at is the page indexation report. Often that's going to have some hints of the pages that Google has already decided that they don't think has a lot of value to them. And I can actually share my screen and show just so people know where to find that report.
Cool. While you're pulling that up, I'll mention everybody listening. If you're checking us out on the podcast, this is always on YouTube as well. Go to localseotactics.com. You can click on, excuse me, click on the link for YouTube, or just search YouTube for Local SEO Tactics. We should show up, and you can watch all this in the video version. And so what TJ is going to show, you'll be able to follow along on screen with the examples.
Okay, so like I said, where I want to look for content that might not be effective on a website is in the page indexing report in Google Search Console. So a lot of people who are familiar with Google Search Console, they're probably looking in the performance section and seeing how many clicks their pages got. That can be another good spot to look, but I want to point out the indexing report because I think less people will be aware of what this report is going to give us. And what we have at the bottom of this, and I guess I should back up. When you get to Google Search Console, there's a sidebar on the left, and then there's a section for indexing, and then underneath that is pages. So that's where you want to click to get to this report.
If everybody watching and listening, we're actually looking at our, what is this, Local SEO Tactics that we're going to be showing here.com for an actual real live example. So we're going to peek under the hood at some of our own stuff. Like we were just referring to 200 and some episodes, right? We got a lot of content. So interesting to see what we find here as we're digging through it too.
So the page indexing report is going to say which pages are indexed. We've got 230. Which pages are not indexed? We've about 198. And you can see it says 8 reasons. So if you scroll down, you see these are the reasons why Google has chosen not to index pages on the site. So the most obvious one, excluded by no index tag, that's something we've decided to put on those pages to say, hey, we don't want this page showing up in search results.
Which can be normal, right? I mean, you have content on your website you might want to block from that or things like that, right? So shouldn't be scared if there's pages that are not indexed. You're going to point out maybe some spots to look for sure, but having some pages in here for the right reasons is totally acceptable.
For sure. One thing that I like to point out is alternate page with proper canonical tag. So this is going to be pages that have a canonical tag that is pointing towards a different page. So that's a way to specify to Google that, hey, we know these two pages are the same. We're going to put a duplicate, we're going to put a canonical tag pointing to the main version of this page. And then Google is going to know, okay, I don't need to worry about this other page. You might need it for some reason, but Google does not need to index both pages. There's an error or a reason that will show up on this list that is not on our list here, but it's basically going to say something along the lines of different page with proper canonical tag, and Google chose it. So just to recap, alternate page with proper canonical tag means that we have our canonical tags set up. We know that there's two similar pages, and we've got the canonical tag specifying which page is the main version of the page that Google should be indexing. If we did not have that set up correctly, we would see a reason in here called duplicate without user selected canonical.
Okay.
So that means that Google is finding multiple versions of the same content, and we have not specified which is the main version. And oftentimes that means Google is going to not index one. They're just going to choose whichever they think is the best. We always want to be in control of the content that we want Google to index. In that report, if you see it on your search console, that's definitely a place to audit and look and see if there's duplicate content on your website, and a good indication that it can be pruned or consolidated into, a single page.
Right on.
A couple other areas of this report that I look at are crawled, currently not indexed, and discovered, currently not indexed. So if you click on any of these, you'll get the list of actual URLs that Google's flagging here, and then you can see which pages they're talking about. But again, these are all pages that are not indexed. Crawled means that Google is crawled, it's found your page on your website, and it just didn't index it. So sometimes these are newer pages, it hasn't indexed it yet, it might still. But a lot of times it's not specifically saying it, but it's an indication that these pages, they don't see any reason to put those pages into Google search. So those can be areas where you need to either decide, do I need these pages on my website? Can this content be consolidated elsewhere? Or are they just pages I can get rid of?
So TJ, that kind of brings up a fork in the road. You're talking about here how to identify content that would be potentially pruned, right? Or kind of where to look to start, giving this an assessment. And maybe you're going to uncover a few things more, but I wanted to share a quick thought. There's two options, right? You can prune the content, just delete it, get rid of it, which we'll elaborate on. But then there's also what you're just mentioning, like combining pages, right? Or consolidating pages. Whether you knew you had these duplicate-ish pages or for whatever the reason, if you're going to consider pruning, one option is to combine them, consolidate them, reinvigorate those pages. If Google's not indexing a page, but you think it's authoritative and needs to be out there, you don't want to just delete that. You want to give it some attention. We're not going to talk about that today in this episode, but we do want to on a future episode. So diving deeper into pages, that need to be powered up, combined, right? So pruning content, but not just deleting it, how to combine it. We'd like to dive into that. And TJ and I were talking right before we started recording this episode. What would be a great way to go through that is to get you, the audience, involved, kind of like we did on the Kyle Roof, where submit your website. If you want us to go through this, take a look at your data, take a look at your pages, make some recommendations on what needs to be pruned, and then what needs to be pruned by combining and powering up some of your pages and your content. We'd love to go through this with an example from a real life website from one of you out there. So if you're interested in participating, if you want us to go through your website, if you have a larger website, maybe an older website with a lot of content, if you'd like TJ and myself to walk through it and talk about how to prune the content and help you with this, let us know. Go to localseotactics.com, go to this episode page for pruning content, and on that page we'll have a link to be able to submit your site. And in a future episode, we'll break that down and go through it, and we'll talk with you about it ahead of time. So if you're interested, please check that out, localseotactics.com. Go to this episode, submit your site, and we'll talk about how to prune and improve your content down the road. So that aside, TJ, do you want to walk us through? So I guess first we should pause. Is there any other tools that you would use to evaluate the content on your website to decide what is to be pruned, or at least on the chopping board? And if not, maybe transition into why you want to do this or how you're going to do this the next stages. So
Yeah, for sure. So, without getting too technical, website crawling tools is another area where you can look to find content that might be ripe for the picking. And I don't know if that actually made any sense to say ripe for the picking, but ripe for the trimming. So yeah, Screaming Frog, Ahrefs, SEMrush, Sitebulb, tools like that. They're all crawling the website in the way that Google would crawl a website. So, but a lot of those tools, they'll give you a report of the internal linking on your website, and they'll be able to give you the number of internal links pointing at each of your pages on the website. And a lot of times they'll give you like a score as well of uh, how well linked in with the rest of the site your pages are. So if there's a lot of links pointing towards a page, Google is seeing the same thing. This page is important. It's understanding the context in which it's linked to. So those crawling tools can be a really good place to find pages that have a low amount of internal links. And often those are kind of the pages that aren't going to be performing well. They probably aren't linked to because they might not fit in as well with your website anyways. So if you've got a subscription to any of those crawling tools, I know Screaming Frog's got a free version that can do this. So that might be somewhere to look.
So maybe if you can elaborate for everybody why. So this is how you find potential content to prune, right? It doesn't mean if your page shows up in this report and it doesn't have enough links pointing back to it, right? Or if it's not indexing Google, we're definitely not saying just delete that page, right? But what we are saying is here's how you should start to look at what's the potential content to be pruned. TJ, would you mind helping people understand now why they would want to prune? And when we say prune, we're talking about getting rid of it, right? Probably deleting it. Why would they want to do this for their website? Could you dive into that a little bit more?
Yeah, for sure. So I kind of hinted at this earlier, but one of the biggest reasons is duplicate content. Do you already have a page on your website that is fulfilling the purpose of this other page? If so, you'd probably want to get rid of that and just have one page covering one thing. Um, Another situation is content that is off topic. So if you're a small business that has a set of services, maybe in the past you had created some pages about a service and you no longer do that anymore. You wouldn't want to just leave that content up on the website. It's not really going to help anybody who comes to your website now. Um, you could, in your about page, say, we used to do X, Y, and Z, and now we don't. And then you're explaining that still. You're not losing the history of what your business does and how you got to where you got. But you maybe don't need a bunch of service pages talking about those services that you don't do anymore.
Right. In a sense, too, they also, if you're just thinking about Google and all the pages that we put on our website and we're trying to communicate to Google what it is that we do, right? What are we authoritative about? What are we relevant to? So if you're not providing those services or products anymore, um, you're also kind of giving yourself that false impression, right, to Google. They're not really understanding what it is that you do, right? So I like how you kind of frame that up, and that for me, that's what I'm hearing as well too. So hopefully people are translating that as well, because you mentioned earlier, really a lot of this comes down to we want to be in charge of what Google is serving up, both for broadly what they think about us as a brand and as a website. And when I say us, I mean like as you're listening, right? That means you. But then also the specific pages, and if Google's not sure which page is important about this particular topic, you don't want to be at their mercy. So yeah, hopefully that's resonating with everybody. This is a pretty serious topic, and again, especially if you've had a website out there for a while, the longer your website's been around, more likely you are to have a need for this. So, any other major reasons, TJ, to prune content off your website? Those are some pretty good ones right there.
Yeah, I guess those were kind of like examples of the types of content to prune still. But one of the benefits that comes out of doing this is now your site's smaller, right? So it's leaner. It's easier for you to go in and focus on the content that you should be focusing on, and not get overwhelmed with, a massive amount of pages on the site that maybe you made a long time ago. So that's kind of like SEO aside, it just makes your website easier to work on for yourself.
Great point.
And then, yeah, another benefit is if you're trimming a lot of content that was unnecessary on your site, it's going to make it quicker for Google to crawl your website too. So if you have 500 pages and you really only need 50, Google is going to crawl those 50 pages, not have to worry about crawling 450 other ones that maybe have a lot of the same content on them. And then it's going to be able to crawl and focus on the pages that you want it to.
Yeah, again, being in charge, right, of the image that you're providing to Google, and how they're parsing out and processing what your entity does. So it's good. So we've covered, kind of how to find some of this content, why you'd want to prune it. You think it's time to walk into the topic of how to prune some of this and get rid of the pages properly? There is a right and a wrong way to do it. So what say you about that?
Yeah, for sure. So once you've identified a page that you're going to prune, um, what I like to look at is, all right, is this page showing up in search results? So one, is it indexed? Um, and if so, is it getting impressions or clicks? So if it's not getting impressions, it's not getting in clicks, and maybe it is indexed, but it's not getting clicks or impressions. The next place I would look is in Google Analytics and look at page views. There's some pages that maybe aren't doing that well in search, but you might find that once people are on your site, they're clicking over and they're engaged on that page. So just as like a safety precaution, that's kind of my process. I look at how is this page performing in search? And then if it's not performing well, is it getting engagement on my website? And then if that's still a no, then I'm like, all right, we can get rid of this page. Um,
It's a great safety check there, TJ. If I could just interrupt you, I'm sorry. The the quick trigger that people might have, just saying, "Oh, here's 30 pages that are irrelevant," right? They're not even showing up in Google. They're not ranked. Google could care less. But if your users and your clients on your website need those pages for some reason, just keep them there, right? This isn't just about being found in search in digital marketing, right? We also want people to contact us, to call us, to email us, whatever it is. Yeah, that's a great nugget right there, TJ. Thank you.
yeah, so then you've done the safety checks, you found the page you want to get rid of, and then you need to know basically once you get rid of that page, you don't want to leave any dead ends behind. So if there were links to that page on your website, you want to make sure it's not just going to be a 404. So the 404 is going to be bad for the user if they click over to it, and it's going to be bad for search engines because it stops them crawling, and they've got to go back and then continue on.
And for everybody who doesn't know what TJ means when he says 404, if you're just getting into SEO or some of this, if you ever click on a link for a website and you basically get to a page where that's not found, that's a 404 error in kind of internal speak. So, yeah, what you don't want to have is a link that still exists out there somehow off of a PDF, off of a web page, or even off of Google search results. If you delete the page like TJ's talking, the user is going to see a page that says it's no longer there. And you definitely want to avoid that.
So if it's a page that you're pretty confident really didn't have a lot of value, wasn't getting a lot of eyeballs on it or engagement, um, I'll just get rid of it, and then I'll fix the links that were pointing to that to either just not link there anymore or to link somewhere else. Now, if this is a page that was doing okay, and maybe you're getting a couple clicks in search, and maybe you were getting a little bit of engagement on it, or maybe you've got a couple backlinks to it. If any of those things are true, I would normally want to set up a 301 redirect as well. So, like Jesse said, 404 is not found. 301 means permanently moved. And then you get to decide if anybody happens to go to that page, where are they going to get redirected to? And you want to keep in mind where you're going to send that person. So you want to make sure that you're sending them somewhere that is relevant to the page that you've gotten rid of.
You don't want to just push them back to your homepage, for example.
You could, if you think that's the best place for them to go to. But if maybe there's a related service or something like that, or maybe you consolidated three pages that were about the same thing and you want to redirect to the one that you're keeping or something like that.
Hey everyone, just a quick message about our free SEO audit tool on localseotactics.com, and we'll get right back to the show. If you haven't taken advantage of it yet, go on out to localseotactics.com/free SEO audit, or look for the yellow button up in the top right corner, click that. And it's going to take just a couple seconds. You enter in the page that you want to optimize, what you're looking for the audit to score against. Enter in that page, enter in the keyword you're looking to get optimized for, and enter in your email address, click the button, and it's going to take you a few seconds, and then it's going to send you off a PDF report via email. It's a great report. It's going to kind of give you an overall score of some vital SEO areas for that page and for your website at large, even though it's auditing this page. That's going to tell you some of the good things that are happening, some of the bad things that are happening too, and give you basically a checklist of some things that you need to shore up and what you can do to improve your SEO for that page, for that keyword that you're auditing. Now you can use this as many times as you want. You can do multiple keywords, multiple pages, multiple keywords on the same page. You can even use this to check against your competitors, right? If you want to do a little reverse engineering, see how they're scoring for a certain keyword, what they may be doing good that you're not, and some things to improve there. So lots of different ways to use it, completely free. Again, go on to localseotactics.com/free SEO audit, or look for the yellow button in the top right corner of the website. All right, so TJ, I know we talked before recording that there's a pretty good example. Just came out recently in an article on Search Engine Land about maybe the wrong way to go about this, or some negative impacts from doing this in a little haphazardly way. You want to talk about that? Let everybody know. And we'll link to this in the show notes as well for everybody to learn more. So,
Yeah, that's a good question. So recently there was an article in Search Engine Land, and it was talking about how CNET deleted thousands of pages on their website. And basically what happened is some people from Google chimed in and just wanted to remind people that, yes, you want to have helpful content on your website. It does not mean you need to get rid of old content, though. And something that CNET did is they got rid of a bunch of old content and old news content specifically. So there's value in having old content on your website as long as it's still relevant to what the purpose of your website is. In this example, what they, from CNET's perspective, they're looking at, low engagement, not a lot of people looking at these pages, which makes sense. It's older news. But there are instances where you might want to know what the news was 10 years ago when it was published. So
it's okay with that being part of the encyclopedia of information, right? Even if it's not something that's as popular or relevant today, there's some good context there. So,
yeah. So don't feel like you need to get rid of content just because you wrote a blog post 10 years ago. You might want to consider instead updating that post, making sure that if there's anything that is not accurate anymore, you can specify that, and just focus on keeping good, relevant content on your website and not necessarily just getting rid of things just for the sake of them being old.
I think that's a good segue to remind everybody we are going to do kind of a part 2 to this, TJ, where we're going to talk about how to do some of that combining of pages, updating of those old pages in that example right there, right? Like how to go through an old blog post if it's out of date and either freshen it up or maybe put resources to the updated blog post right there to have people find that. If anybody out there listening is interested in having us take a look at your site and walk through that as an example, going out to localseotactics.com, get to this show page, and we will have a button there for you or a link there for you to submit your site and use it on that episode. So help everybody else out while getting some custom advice and direction on your site as well. TJ, great episode. I think this is a very helpful topic for everybody. Like we said on the front side, we talk so much about creating content. Content is king, content is queen, etc. This is the reverse end of that, which is pretty darn important as well, and probably some new news to a lot of people. Before we wrap it up, is there anything else you wanted to add in closing? Anything we forgot about? Any other nuggets you want to share?
No, I'm looking forward to seeing what somebody might submit for us to, give some recommendations on. Definitely, if somebody's out there and you can look back and remember when you first got into SEO and you were just experimenting and trying and building pages as you were learning, I think somebody like that would be, a great example of who could submit their site here. So,
yeah, we'll see. We'll see what rolls in. Again, everybody check it out, localasertactics.com. TJ, thanks for jumping on again. I should mention too to everybody, you're going to see more of TJ. We've done episodes previously. There's going to be more content coming. And whenever TJ's on, pay attention because he is the SEO manager at Intrix. And we're making sure we go through things that we do for our clients, right? So TJ bringing on this topic here today of content pruning, we're walking through something that's part of what we do every day for our clients here at our firm. And that's very important for your website as well. So stay tuned for more TJ related content in the future as we get deep into some more tips and tricks for your website. Thanks for hanging out today, TJ. Everybody else, catch you on the next one. Take care.
Thanks, Jesse.